welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite parts of my hi-fi setup, and it's something that I use every day, and it's a piece of software you may have heard of called Roon. If you are into streaming nowadays, whether it's with Spotify or BlueOS or Sonos, you may have heard on forums and whatnot of something called Roon. And you might not be sure of what it is. So just a quick explanation of what Roon is so we can move on. Roon is, like I said, it's software. It runs on its own machine. It's not operating in the cloud. You need to run what is called the core software on a device, such as a laptop, desktop, a Intel NUC, which is what I use. Roon also sells its own kind of modified NUC called a nucleus. So this software runs on a server. And what it does is it takes your CD collection that you might have ripped, your subscriptions to Tidal or Qobuz, those are the two streaming services it supports right now, and it combines them into one catalog, right? So anytime you're searching using the Roon app, you don't have to go to Tidal and search through Tidal, or Qobuz and search through Qobuz, or through your CD collection or anything like that. You just simply go to the artist or the genre, and it will put all of your collection together and your streaming services together in your search criteria. It's really cool. So Roon doesn't come with any hardware or streaming services or any music itself. It doesn't provide any music. All it is software that helps compile your music and streaming collection. It does more than that. We'll get to it. That's what this video is about. But that's for the most part, that's what it is. It has its own app, simplifies your collection, right? Price for Roon, there's a subscription. There's a monthly subscription for $10 a month. And then there is a lifetime subscription for $700. And so you might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, this doesn't even come with the streaming service and I'm paying $700 for this? Why would anybody pay for that? And the reason people pay for it and love it so much is because it's so much more than just a one-stop shopping for your streaming and your music services and your CDs. So I'm going to cover some of my favorite things about Roon that you may not know about in this video today. So, top things I love about Roon and why it's one of my favorite parts of my hi-fi. Number one, the metadata. When you search for music on your streaming service, you'll just get maybe the album with the cover art, maybe some related artist info, right? Roon takes it to an entirely different level. When you pull up an album, you'll get probably a review of the album. You may get a history of the band. When you pull up the band, you'll get history of related artists. It just goes above and beyond. It's like reading the slipcover from a CD or reading the inside of a vinyl. It has that kind of feel to it. So as you're listening to the music, you can kind of read through the history of the album or their tours or the different artist information. There's tons of information to read just in the metadata. Number two, MQA. Roon will software decode Tidal MQA for the first unfold, just like the Tidal desktop app will. But for this, you get the first unfold of MQA on any DAC that you have. So it doesn't matter if your DAC does not support MQA, Roon will do the first unfold for you to your non-MQA DAC, right? So the first unfold will get you up to 24-bit 96 kilohertz. So you get most of the benefits of MQA right in the first unfold, and Roon does that for you for any DAC. Speaking of any DAC, that's another thing I love about Roon, is that you can use any DAC you have. Whatever DAC you have, you can use with Roon. A lot of DACs being made today come what they call Roon Ready, so they've partnered with Roon. So if you put their device on your network and you have Roon, Roon will already see it. But even if your device is not Roon Ready, if you have a USB input, all you need is something like this here. All this is a Raspberry Pi in a nice case, right? And you've got network cable in, USB out to your DAC, your USB DAC, and you'll be on your network and be able to use Roon with your DAC. This is a Raspberry Pi. This is the newer edition, but I recommend the newer edition Raspberry Pi because they have now isolated the network bus and the USB bus. They used to share the same bus, so you don't have to worry about any kind of galvanic isolation or anything like that. They've already isolated it for you. What if you don't have a USB input on your favorite DAC? What if you've got SPDIF on your DAC, coax input? Well, you have a device like this. This is a Raspberry Pi in a nice case, but it has what's called a hat on it. So it has network in. You can still do USB out, but it also has SPDIF out to go to your coax input on your DAC if you don't have USB, or if you prefer coax. What if you don't have a DAC at all? What if you just have an amplifier sitting in your garage like I do? Well, got another thing for that. This is a Raspberry Pi and has another hat, and this hat is actually a DAC. Right, you've got RCA outputs here. So network in the Raspberry Pi, and it goes through a DAC. I think this is called an Allo Boss DAC. I think it has a Burr Brown DAC chip on there. And then output to your amplifier. You can control the volume of this through the Roon app. And there you go. This one sits in my garage. I have it hooked up to the network wirelessly. And then it goes from here to a $100 stereo amplifier into a pair of bookshelf speakers in my garage. Just the ability to use these Raspberry Pis, these are very inexpensive. I think you'll pay less than $80 for this whole thing, for the Raspberry Pi, the case, and the micro SD card. Just the ability to use these, if you have enough zones, will probably pay for Roon by themselves, because you don't have to buy any expensive streaming device to hook up your favorite DAC. I mean, this is probably my number one favorite thing about Roon, is that I can use any device I want with it. Not only can you use Roon Ready DACs, you can use Raspberry Pis as sort of a network bridge or streamer to your favorite DAC, but you also have any Sonos is also compatible with Roon. AirPlay devices are compatible with Roon. Chromecast devices are also compatible. So you're not stuck in this ecosystem of Sonos or Blue Sound or AirPlay, right? You can use one app to control all of them. Another cool thing about Roon is visibility of the signal path. As you're playing music, you just click on this little dot right here and you open it up, and it'll show you the entire path of the signal. It'll show you the frequency. It'll show any kind of crossover or bass management you have involved there. If it's MQA, it'll show how it's being decoded and rendered. So lots of devices will show you what frequency is playing or what resolution or bit rate is playing, but none of them have the granularity and detail for the signal path that Roon has. Then we have Roon Radio. This is another one of my favorite parts of Roon that I use a lot. Some other apps like Tidal do have a radio function where they will, if you turn it on, they will continue to play music and try to pick out music that relates to what you've listened to. But Roon does this better than any application that I've found. What makes Roon Radio so great is it's not just streaming Tidal music, it's also streaming Qobuz, it's streaming from my CD collection, it's taking the metadata from my history, my listening history, and it's sending back songs, a lot more songs that I've never heard than any other streaming radio service like Tidal. So I actually get to hear a lot of new music just by using Roon Radio. And one more cool thing about Roon that I'm going to touch on is the EQ, the room EQ. I don't think a lot of people realize that in Roon, you can create EQ profiles for any zone that you have. So even if you have Roon going to a sound bar, you can use a microphone and REW, and if you can get frequency sweeps to that sound bar, then you can create an EQ profile for that sound bar in Roon. Pretty cool. So if you don't have any way to EQ your system, maybe you got a 2-channel, very basic system, and you want to play around, maybe knock some room modes down, then this is a way to do it. So anytime you have your music playing through Roon, it will apply those EQ filters. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. I'm going to link to everything I've talked about down in the description, including links to another channel for Hans Bakehausen. I follow Hans. He's got extensive videos that's going to cover probably every question you have about Roon, whether it's more of what it is, what it does, how to get up and running, how do you set up your own Nook. Done tons of great videos on that. So links to those down in the bottom as well. Yeah, thanks again for coming along. Let me know down in the comments if you use Roon yourself, what you think about it. If you've been thinking about Roon and maybe you have some other questions, or maybe you've used Roon before, didn't really like it, let us know what you didn't like about it. And I want to thank you again for coming by and watching the video, and I'll see you again next time. Have a great day.